Hello guys, welcome back to a brand new chapter. Um, I'm sorry, I can't think. It's 1 a.m. My thinking part isn't working, so I'm just reading words off the screen, and hopefully you guys can make some comprehension. Hee hee. I'm tired, but I'm not physically tired, so I can't sleep, if that makes sense. But yeah, anyways, let's get into it. Mastermind Rise of Anarchy, written by Clouds. My head in the clouds, not coming down. Read by MHA. Chapter 32 Predator. Summary: Villains, heroes, and something in between. Shota had no idea how he ended up being one of the main league's popular image, but he definitely couldn't leave a job like that to someone like Shigaraki, so he did what needed to be done. He felt like he'd grown himself since joining the league, and even more since Izuku left, since there was no way that Izuku would want him moping around while he was in prison. He stopped styling his hair as much since it didn't seem worth the keep up anymore. But he'd also try keeping up with the most recent styles in the league's video. So far, everything seemed to be going well. The best part was, it wasn't even his doing. His old class was self-destructing and doing more to help the league's public image than anything he'd done. Was this how Izuku felt when everything went to plan? It was amazing. Part of him felt bad for 1A, of course, but the trailers have given them Tokoyami, who was powerful, not to mention timely addition to their voices. Plus, he seemed to be happier than Shoto ever had seen him. Not that he'd really been paying much attention back at UA. So maybe it was best that their old classmate had pushed him out. But still, it was a shame they had wasted his potential. After seeing them yank an entire vault door off its hinges, Shoto knew he wouldn't have wanted to fight Tokoyami and Dark Shadow. They'd actually got the chance to become heroes. Then again, if the past few months had taught society anything, it was that heroes weren't really heroes. And there was a reason young Aries' video had gone so viral after all, and why she had captured the hearts and minds of Japan. It was the same reason why Shoto had been able to manipulate the League's reputation into something more akin to vigilantes than villains. People started realizing that what they had been taught their entire lives was wrong, and there wasn't a strict line between heroes and villains. There never had been, and the Hero Commission had lied to them about that. Had lied about Endeavor abusing his kids, Hawks being willing hero. Then what else had they lied about? Shota smiled as he read over Izuku's plan for the Tartarus raid. What if the Commission had lied about the perfect society and what it was supposed to look like? And what if they lied about how much power both villains and hero had to shape it? Sue pushed her quirks to its limit as she camouflaged herself in the trees. She'd asked May to create a version of her standard uniform, incorporated her DNA, and so, like she hoped, May had taken to the assignment with passion, far more focused to pull off the projection than why she was asking for it. May probably couldn't have cared what she was planning to do with it. She could move around UA without being seen by Nezu or the other students, but she was grateful she hadn't needed to explain that, especially not in the support labs where Nezu had eyed. Sue wished that she could trust the principal. She really did. But, to be blunt, she would have to be an idiot to trust the rat. Every time Ochako went to a meeting with the principal, or even the rat ran across him in the halls, she'd come back to the dorms with an even more determination to work herself to the bone, like she had already done by burning the candle both ends, which Nezu had lit a fire in the middle. So no, Sue did not trust the principal. She didn't know why Nezu was pushing Ochako so far, but the new coverage of Bakugo's arrest had given her a pretty good idea. Society was desperate for reassurance that things were still normal, even if they weren't. So they immediately rallied behind Ochako as a symbol of hope, that everything could go back to how it used to be, when that couldn't further be from the truth. They were propping her up as a facade that everything was fine, so desperate for comfort that they couldn't see the dangerful kinds of visibility they would put her in. They were trying to find some sort of comfort, so Sue couldn't even be mad at the general public for latching on to her like that. She could, however, be mad at Nezu. He wasn't really trying to hide the fact that he was manipulating Ochako into becoming what he wanted her to be, and Sue hated it. She also hated that he wasn't the only manipulator in the school, though her current target was at least a bit more subtle than Nezu was. Though, to be honest, that was probably worse, because Sue was fairly certain that she was the only person who suspected Monama's true colors. I'm just saying that 1A were the ones who truly acted like villains in that situation, Monoma said. We, in Class 1B, are better, of course. Somebody had to pick up the slack. Sue watched as Kendo shook her head, not saying anything as Monoma continued on his rant. She noticed him hanging around Tokoyami more. That hadn't speculated anything. Tokoyami had run straight into the League after the class forced him out. It seemed a little too suspicious that they had started hanging out just before Tokoyami defected. The Sue had gotten her new information to work with her camouflage and started following him. It had actually been subtle at first, the way he bad talked the Hero Society and made joining the League villains sound appealing. But what had given him away wasn't that he said, it was the tiny smirk he tried to hide whenever one of his points hit home. And Kengo stopped to think. After that, he hadn't taken long to catch one of his calls to Todoroki when he went off campus. When the realization hit her that he was the traitor that had been giving away their positions to the League and over, Sue sorely tempted to follow in Bakugo's footsteps and take him down to cell. Permanently. But she'd realized something. If she killed Monoma, it would take away the League's connection to UA, yes, but it would also take away UA's connection to the League. Monoma was a spider that weaved a web of deception throughout UA, but that web of lies also made him vulnerable. Now that she knew who the traitor was, she could manipulate the League right back. If she played her cards right, she would need to keep a close eye on him and maybe befriend him to make her plan work. But it was worth it. It was the same thing with Nezu. Sue knew it was only a matter of time until Ochako broke down and realized the rat was just using her, but Nezu had already placed her in a position of power that Ochako could use further or her own goals. It wasn't an ideal situation by any means, but from what Sue could see, it was the only way to make the best of a bad situation. She was an honest person by nature, not a manipulator, but she would have to become a hero if she wasn't willing to do what it took to save the world. She might be surrounded by her enemies, spider, rats, but what they didn't know is those pests were Frost's natural play, and she would do whatever was necessary to protect her friends, especially Ochako. As intimidating as it was to face all these enemies alone, Sue refused to be someone else's prey when she could be the predator. She watched Monoma and Kendo disappear back into the building and was about to drop down from the tree when she saw Shinso walk on the path beneath her. She had seen photos of Eri that had been circling social media. Sometimes Monoma was out with her, sometimes Aizawa or another classmate, but consistently Shinso was somewhere in the background, blending into the shadows, like he wasn't even there in the first place. Eri understood that things weren't all good or all evil, so Shinso was bound to understand that as well, and was bound to understand why Sue didn't want to expose Monoma to Nezu or anyone quite yet. Maybe she didn't have to fight this alone. She only departed for another moment before hopping off a branch and landing in front of Shinso. To his credit, recovered to surprise in record time. Hey Shinso, we should talk. Ribbit. Katsuki hadn't said a word to his parents since his mom had paid his bail and brought him home. He hated the fact that he'd been even offered bail, like they didn't see him as a threat or whatever, just because he hadn't meant to kill the guy, and so they didn't think he'd do it again. Stupid Deku was completely useless. He'd been taken off of Tartarus before they even done his trial. Katsuki was way more powerful than the nerd would ever be, so he deserved at least the same treatment, right? Apparently not, because instead of carrying him off like Katsuki had expected, they sent him home before they could even set a trial date. They had one now, of course, but still, apparently, they were idiots who brought some quirkless wannabe was the most dangerous, that King Explosion murder. Who did they think they were dealing with? Katsuki had been the best, even before his quirk came in, and he definitely was better than Deku. No matter what those idiots seemed to think, he'd always planned on proving that by becoming the #1 hero. But even if the hero rankings hadn't been dissolved by a stupid society that was too cowardly to face threats head on, he'd be expelled from UA and blacklisted from every hero school in the country. There was no way he'd ever become a hero. But he refused to fade into obscurity like Aizawa and Uraraka and Nezu, and everyone clearly wanted him to. No, he was sick of this. As soon as Katsuki's parents were asleep, Katsuki grabbed a backpack from under his bed and slid out the window. He'd show them. He'd show everyone what he was from better than Deku. And if he couldn't do that by being the #1 hero, then he'd just have to become the #1 villain instead. Oh my goodness. It's getting so good. I thought he was gonna go back to vigilantism. But villain? Did I read that right? I did, right? He'd have to become the #1 villain instead. Villain. Damn. I'm like really excited for the next chapter now. So I gotta record it so you guys can get it immediately after this one. Thank you for putting up with my stupid outros and intros. I don't know what I'm doing right now. It is 1:23. But yeah, I don't have anything else. Sorry, I'm still trying to recover. I didn't read this one ahead of time. Also, like, I stopped in the middle of that last section because I don't know what happened. Because I'm reading this on a PDF, and like I was scrolling down slightly to read it, and then like it just went like 20 pages down. So I just paused it and picked it up. Not bad. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great day, night, whatever time of day it is. But yeah, I will see you in the next chapter, which I will get out ASAP.